Good evening, everybody. This is Lyrata Barrett for the Institute for Global Transformation. And today, continuing under a new name, Self-Mastery Training via Ageless Wisdom Teachings. And today we are continuing our conversation in a slightly different way, a little bit more scientific. We are speaking today about the three planes of vibrating matter. And specifically, we're going to be exploring the etheric plane, time, space, that reflective surface, the false light and lost identity, the overshadowing soul that learns through experience and form, and contemplating etheric substance. And lastly, visualizing the etheric network. We'll do that part through a meditation. So we have spoken previously in past lessons about the three planes of human endeavor. Starting from the bottom, that would be the physical or a physical plane, or like we like to use the physical plane, the physical etheric, physical etheric, the astral plane or the emotional plane, and the mental plane. Because we live on the physical plane, we tend to be, as I've talked about before, outwardly focused. Others would say imprisoned, because it is an imprisonment, as it keeps us away from the source of who we really are. Because we foolishly think that this is the end all be all. This is it. Anything that we can see that's solid is real. Anything that we cannot see is not real, unfortunately. And as we do that, in that kind of that mode of thinking, fortunately, young ones coming up today do not live in that mode. They're really very connected to different worlds. As a result, we have an unwillingness to include and completely discount our dream world, synchronicities, reincarnation, our own inner worlds, the soul, our chakras and their foci, kinesiology, vibrational healing, the meridians, acupressure, little less acupressure because that people can feel, and the nadis, among a few. Not to mention the other planes so aptly described in the Constitution of Man diagrams. We think only in terms of the solid world, but we also live in a world of thought, a world of emotions. As such, we're only aware because we only focus, we have a tendency to only focus on that which we see with our eyes. We only are focusing on 1/3, believe it or not, of our environment. Things have to take on a solid appearance before we recognize them, before we believe them to be true. Now, having said that, I am aware, and I do believe, that the last 50 years, our consciousness has evolved tremendously. We've caught up on a lot of things, okay? Which is why we have conversations now on emotional intelligence, okay? The sensing of energies, the quantum field, okay? Humanity is expanding its consciousness beyond the limitation of the physical, no question. But, and our evolution is going to go through major leaps in this period of time, in the coming time, in the very short future. Okay, within the next 10 years, what we experience is going to be a quantum leap for humanity in its evolution. Okay, 10 to 20 years. So things are moving rapidly right now. And our horizons are expanding because of scientific findings, the work of the parapsychology movement and the New Age movement. But we need to be aware of a number of things that we will be pointing out in this particular lesson. First, the world around us of solid objects is the outer casing or appearance of three interrelated and interdependent planes of vibrating matter. You know them as the mental, as we just talked about, the astral emotional, and the physical etheric. And we say physical etheric because the physical and the physical etheric go hand in hand. 3 inches off of our body is what we call the physical etheric or the light body. And we are completely surrounded, whether we know it or not, we are completely surrounded by the etheric energies. And we'll go through that now. The physical plane, as we hold on to so strongly, is how the 3 planes are regarded. But the physical plane is only an appearance or reflection in time and space. Aha. The physical plane is the actualization of 3 planes of vibrating matter. These 3 planes of vibrating matter are the mental plane, also known as energy, the emotional or astral plane, also known as force, and the etheric plane, which is what we're going to be talking about today, also known as substance. This etheric plane underlies and substantiates, vitalizes, and animates the appearance we call the physical world. It is the basic substance out of which all things are made. It is the substantial, all-penetrating, and all-pervading body of God, the physical etheric, or the etheric plane. Within this body are the etheric forms, the vital life bodies, whose appearances are reflected in time and space as solid objects of our world. Now, as I said, this lesson takes us on a slightly different tangent because it brings in the more scientific wisdom. So be aware of that and really focus. So its vibratory barrier, the vibratory barrier of the etheric plane has been penetrated, for that is how electricity is drawn. The universe and every form within it has its higher counterpart in etheric substance and has taken on appearance because of that counterpart. Without this substantial vital life body, a reality could not reflect itself upon time and space. I have to say that again because it's important. I want to make sure everybody heard that. The universe and every form within it has its higher counterpart in etheric substance, and it's taken on appearance because of that counterpart in etheric substance. Without this substantial vital life body of reality in etheric substance, a reality could not reflect itself upon time and space. Next, everything that comes into actualization through the donning of an etheric robe or substance, everything that is comes into actualization through the donning of an etheric robe or body of substance. The reflecting surface of time and space. Time and space is a reflecting surface, and we'll talk about that going forward. The reflecting surface that time and space is causes the reflecting form that's taking on appearance to be slightly distorted. So we never are really able to perceive it as it actually is. For instance, we do not perceive the human family as a one life. Because when we look out, and when I say the human family, I mean the human family collectively, obviously, the human family, okay? As a one life, we do not see it as that because when we look out, we see everything as separate. We lack the ability to see the subtle streams of energy that link everything together. We think we are separate from everything, which is our flaw. And it takes a long time for us to realize it, incarnations to realize it. We don't see that we are a part of the oneness, that the human family is one. The same thing applies to the plant and animal kingdoms. We think them too as separate. We don't realize that this is the body. This is the body. All four kingdoms are the body of God, the body of the planetary being, the body of the planetary logos. We think everything is separate, not connected, disjointed, when in fact we could see that this is an entity within which we live, move, and have our being. This is an entity. Then we'd see the fallacy of how we treat this earth. This causes us to be in wrong relationship with everything that is. We cannot manifest order because we don't see, feel, live the order within us. It's through these tiny lines that connect everything, the nadis, the meridians, the arteries, of within, of and within the universe. Everything is linked. These etheric channels are everywhere. If we had the ability to see, we would see them. But we can now, we can know, rather, we can know them now. We can know this because this information, this wisdom is being imparted to you. You can hold it in your awareness, ponder it, meditate on it, begin to live with the awareness that when we walk outside of our door, every being that's walking around us, every car that we pass, every person we stop and talk to or pass by, period. Okay. Everyone who's standing in line behind us to get out of a store, we are all connected. We are one family. Every animal that passes us by, every bird. Time and space is a reflecting surface. Time, space are created via the movement of energy, force, and substance as they are coalesced into form. So, we have the aspect of energy, force, and substance that we said are part of the mental, astral, physical, etheric. The vibrating aspects of matter. When these three work together, to outpicture an idea, through consciousness, because remember, we are all given the gift of creativity. As God creates, so can we. And we do. The problem is that we create, we think, we think that we are given the right to create anything we want to create. We don't know the laws of creativity. And the law of creativity states that the gift of creativity that we have is to be used in alignment with the divine. We cannot create any willy-nilly thing that we seek to create. We first have to ask, is this in alignment with my soul? Is this in alignment with God, the divine? How many things have been created Oppenheimer just comes to mind for some reason. How many things have been created? And I'm not saying that that was not in alignment with the divine. It very well may have been in alignment with the divine, because one aspect of the divine is that it is that it begins and ends cycles. So therein is an energy of divine purpose, power, and will to begin and end a cycle as need be, punto. Okay. In this case, end the cycle. In that case, rather, Oppenheimer case. But we're given the ability to create, one. When we are in alignment with the divine, when we are palpitating in connection with, acknowledgement of, and desirous to focus outwardly in this world from a vertical alignment, that which this world really needs, not for our own personal satisfaction, not self-serving, but what does humanity need? And is this going to benefit humanity? Then we're in alignment with the divine. There are many things that are created. There are many things that create. Look, pet rocks. And they were huge. Big seller, pet rocks. Another big one was Cabbage Patch dolls. Lightsabers. Okay. I'm not saying that those are incorrect or wrong. That's not where I'm coming from. But the aspect of creativity and the laws of creativity need to be understood, especially when we walk this path, so that that which we seek to create is in alignment with the divine. And then we know we're using our energies. It's right action with right understanding and all of the other powerful rights that go along with those noble truths. So the energy, force, and substance, when it collates, yes, when we create, we are working with the energy, force, and substance. When they coalesce together, when they come together, they bring things into appearance. That's what it's talking about. It creates time and space. When whatever moves into appearance, it creates time. From that point that it appears, it creates time and space. So time and space is a reflecting surface. And as it says, time and space are created via the movement of energy, force, and substance as they are coalesced into form. This movement creates what is known as a false light, within which such movement is slowed down as sequential happenings. Going back to the physical etheric, just to make sure that we totally understand as much as we possibly can. The, the, mm, the physical etheric is known to be malleable. It's also known as chi. The acupuncture system. It consists of millions of tiny lines called the nadis. that blend with the nerves in the body. Kirlian photography is able to take photographs of that physical etheric. The physical etheric supports everything in our world and has a physical etheric counterpart, as I'd mentioned before, or it could not be. Our physical body looks like it does because of the construction of the physical etheric. It extends out and penetrates into the body. And you could think of the physical etheric as a network of atoms. The physical etheric network includes things like ley lines, earth grids, power sites. The physical etheric network links humanity, families, schools of fish, planets. It's why schools of fish will all of a sudden move suddenly in a totally different direction. Okay? But they move together. Birds too. Religious temples were really batteries where points of earth were known to be stronger. They were always built on battery, on these points of earth, where the energy was known to be very powerful. The etheric body of the earth supports the etheric light of the earth. Its main characteristic is vitality, and it runs on prana from the sun. Visible and invisible sunlight. Ultraviolet light is part of the etheric plane. In the death process, the physical etheric network must be dissipated of the physical body. Although when I'm talking about physical plane, we're talking about know that the physical etheric that envelops us and causes us to outpicture as we each do is also part of the larger etheric network, the etheric plane. Okay? There's really no separation between any of it. Everything is held together by an etheric web. And if anyone has had to move, as I experienced having to move back in 2017, 2018, 2018, 2019, 2019, where it was the hardest thing to break down my home. I mean, everything in my being was just totally, violently against it. And it was through these studies that I came to realize that that etheric webbing is within our house, our homes, our apartments, our personal spaces. And it builds up, it takes on a structure that begins to be ripped when we're disassembling it because we have to move. Is that not interesting? I thought it was very interesting. It made me real, and can imagine also in relationships. Okay, a divorce, breakup, whatever. That is something that we have to be aware of. That's why it hurts so badly, because of that physical etheric webbing. And many times you'll see those of us who are on the spiritual path, we will know that we have to, if we need to separate ourselves from someone that is toxic, then what we have to do is rip away, tear away, burn away, separate ourselves, those aka cords, those cords that connect us, that is part of that etheric webbing that we're disconnecting, that connect us to that person. Otherwise, we're always connected. Very interesting. Working with the etheric body is important for healing. In the death process, this physical etheric network must be dissipated. It moves back up, out into the universe. It all depends, I think, on the level of the person who is dying. If they're an initiate, that energy moves straight out through the head, up and out. If it's a traumatic death, more than likely, the energy is moving out from the solar plexus. It all depends. And the physical body is dissipated, and that is returned energetically to the earth, one way or the other. Whether we dissolve the body through cremation or whether we are interred doesn't make a difference. It's still going back to earth, one way or the other. Consider the soul an individual unit of consciousness within the life of a planetary being, looking down at its own reflection in time and space, much as you might look at your own reflection in a mirror or a pool of water. And this is a concept I'm reading because I want to make sure you really understand it and that I impart it correctly. What if you were to lose your identity as a human being, to the form upon the reflecting surface of that pool of water or that mirror? What if you were to lose your identity? You would be limited in your awareness to the limitations of the reflecting surface. Its dimensions would be yours. Its sensibilities would be yours. You would lose cognition of yourself over a period of time, as you now are, and become lost. You would lose your cognition of yourself as you now are over a period of time, and lose also the reality of yourself as a human being in a world of human beings. That would completely disappear if you found yourself lost in a pool of water or lost within the reflection of a mirror. In a real sense, this is what has happened to your soul consciousness, but only in part. It extended but a part of itself into the reflection. That part which is your I consciousness. And that extension became lost to its true identity. It lost its awareness of itself as a soul in a world of souls. That's understandable. That's why we say we're imprisoned in form. That's why we say we spend so much time on understanding the aspects of the physical, the astral, emotional, and the mental in the three worlds of human endeavor. Because we are trying to understand and to work back really through that into soul connection, so that through that movement, we're connect, and also we sit in meditation on a daily basis, habitually, so that that soul can bit by bit, drip by drip, connect with us. And we, through sitting in meditation, become more receptive to who we are as soul, as a soul. But there was a reason for this separation, a divine purpose. The overshadowing soul learns through the experiences of its extension in form how to control and dominate substance and the form nature, so that on its own level, it creates with wisdom the forms that give it expression, soul expression. As the extension fulfills that purpose, as it evolves back into the realization of God and the divine, expression plus the wisdom gained from its experiences, the being becomes whole. That is, the extension is no longer merely an extension. It has become a conscious soul incarnate. And I've talked about this in the past. It's the aspect of that slow movement of the integrated persona being receptive to soul, and the soul accepting that its vehicle, its instrument within this body, as this body, the being within this body is now ready for it to work together, for them both to work together, which is what we call soul infusion, the divine mergence, someone who's awakened. It is difficult to ascertain the actual nature of the etheric substance because humankind is so limited in its perception. So here's a definition of the etheric substance. It is matter vibrating at its lowest rate of frequency, an aspect of the intelligent substance of God. In its final analysis, it is that vital life substance that coalesces around energy, force, and substance, or rather energy and force, to produce a substantial form. It is its nature to give form to that direction of energy and force impressed upon or flowing into it. So, how does the personality then, focused in the distorted reflection of the true form in nature, and the true form in time and space, apprehend and perceive the nature of the etheric, which is the closest to us in frequency? How does the form, how does the personality do that? Is it possible for us to tune our sensory mechanism into the frequency band that is able to connect with it? And if so, how do we do that? How we do that is through the mind and the brain and the sensory mechanism itself. But it takes a long time to be able to learn how to do that. So, how do we hasten? How do we speed up that time? Etheric substance is what is commonly thought of as the energy or force of action. Actually, it is the substance of action. This is a term to meditate and think upon. So often it is thought that the etheric substance is the energy or force, meaning the mental or astral component of action. But in truth, etheric substance is the substance of action. Interesting. The substance of action. This is a term to meditate and think upon. It's the substance of action. So, what this is saying then is that we have a tendency in our world to do things, move in the world, move in our life, often without thought. Between the thought and the action, there's little time. Many times it feels like the action comes before the thought. The key here is to be able to slow the process down, which is what mindfulness is about. It's about the awareness of what one is doing at every stage. The awareness of the intention, the awareness of the desire to act, to do, to complete, to say, to get something. Mindfulness teaches us that between that thought and the action, there are moments in time where we consider whether or not this is actually what we want to do and how. We have moments in between where we can navigate the how and if the action is actually to take place. The moment between the stimulus and the activity, the reaction to that stimuli, holds sequences of time within it, pockets of time, wherein we can stop and recalibrate. That's what this is talking about. We commit the act, even a rash impulsive reaction, seconds before it takes form before our eyes. We actually accomplish the act in etheric substance. So here's an example. One can, and I ask that you play with this with me as I'm doing it. So we can hold our arm out and we can decide we want to bend it vertically. We can also hold our arm out and decide we want to bend it vertically, but do it with the etheric body of the arm. Imagine it being bent vertically, and it will. It is being bent. It's the etheric aspect of the arm is being bent, if we so will it. The same thing applies to amputees. Their leg will be gone, but they still feel the leg whole because the etheric body of that leg is still there. Okay? We actually accomplish the act in etheric substance via the mind and the emotions before it impacts upon the brain to produce a reflection of itself in time and space, which can be perceived by the sensory mechanism. Perfect example today, Vladimir Putin has been elected for the next, 6 to 8 years in Russia. But energetically, there is such a groundswell of opposition to that election that that energy is like daggers, I would imagine, pointing toward him at all times, surrounding his physical being. That's a lot of energy. That's a lot of energy that one has to, in that position, experience and feel. I would imagine that that energy would, over a long period of time, take a toll. And not just anybody in that position, doesn't have to be that particular example, but anybody in that position, um, being the head of a country is a difficult thing. We can see what it did to Barack Obama, who went in so youthfully and came out totally different. Um, yeah, it's yeah, it's just again, we're dealing not only with the stress of the position, but part of that stress is the level of the collective. If the collective loves and supports you, that's all one thing. But if you have a strong contingent of the collective that is totally against you, that energy seeps into your being. I can imagine there has to be a lot of protection around someone like that in order for them to be able to sustain themselves in that position, which is why you only are there so ideally for 4 years, right? Or whatever the case may be. The average human being does not, as yet, live in the moment, but rather a few seconds after the moment. We have not caught up to ourselves, but we live behind our actions in the outer reflection of them. Have you ever had déjà vus? Have you ever suddenly remembered living in an exact moment in time before that moment actually occurs? Have you ever experienced the bewildering sense of exact repetition in the scene taking place before you? I know you have. I have many times. If so, in those rare moments, you were closer in consciousness to the real act than at any other time. That's interesting, huh? Humanity's initial action is largely unconscious. It's almost entirely the result of automatic response rather than of a conscious forming of intent. In order to act consciously, one must consciously focus an intent in that pause between outer reflections of activity. The brain is the station for transmitting etheric phenomena into physical actualization. This is difficult to understand so long as one is hampered by the brain. It is not an originator or a true formulator of thought. It's a receiver and a transmitter of that thought and feeling, which is given form in etheric substance, which is the initial act, by an incarnate consciousness, that being living within that form. For instance, we perceive a tree first in its etheric form via our own etheric body before it's reflected into time and space via our brain to be perceived by the senses and retranslated in the brain as a tree. This is an unconscious act and constitutes a part of our unconscious knowledge, yet it is a fact in nature. Our consciousness actually lives within the etheric counterpart of the physical. This counterpart indwells and animates the physical, yet it is independent of it. It can be withdrawn from contact with the reflecting surface by the overshadowing soul. And this is exactly what happens in the transition of death. I was talking about that a few moments ago. When the soul is withdrawn, the elements, or the consciousness rather, is withdrawn, the elements of the so-called physical reassemble themselves back into a reflection of the various frequencies of etheric substance. The physical body disintegrates into a reflection of the etheric plane because the animating form of that organized system of life, the individual, is no longer in juxtaposition with time and space. It's no longer there. The etheric body of an individual underlies the brain and nervous system, resembling a vast network of small tubes or channels which carry the vital life of the system, plus the energy, force, and substance of it into actualization via a system of etheric centers: the cerebral nervous system, the glands, the respiratory system, and the bloodstream. Fanning out from the physical form, the etheric network joins the major network underlying the family, the immediate environment, that is, the community or group, the influential environment, that is, the nation, the race, humanity at large, via major arteries, which connect all parts of the one life into an interrelated whole. Each aspect of the etheric is conditioned by the collective consciousness indwelling it, as that consciousness responds to stimuli with thought, feeling, and action. In other words, the etheric network of the family, the immediate environment that is conditioned by the collective consciousness of that family as it responds via thought, feeling, and action to the impact of stimuli. Thus, the life and affairs of all beings are interrelated and affected by one another. One can experiment with this fact in nature by 1, visualizing the etheric network which underlies the body itself, and via that network, revitalizing and energizing the system with vital life energy by drawing upon the universal source of life and distributing it throughout the network. It will reflect in the physical as more energy and a higher tone in general health. I told you this was a different kind of a lesson. Totally different kind of a lesson. It's very scientific in a way. So much so that I needed to make sure I was dotting my I's and crossing my T's properly, because I'm learning to bring in the scientific aspect of things into these teachings and into our daily lives, because it's needed. This is a time when science and spirituality go together. They become one. As we enter the Aquarian age. So, we're going to do a meditation, brief meditation, to revitalize and energize the system. And we are all in need of that, especially in these times. Because depending on how one nourishes oneself, if you're listening to a lot of news, and you don't even need to listen to a lot of it, listen to it once a day, and that's enough to deflate anyone, or anger, whatever. So let's take a moment. Hopefully, before we go into this meditation, by the way, yes. Last month, we worked on the setting up of a meditation that incorporates a different seed thought each month. And this meditation it's designed to approximate the meditator, the one meditating, to their soul. And each meditation is another step in that direction. And these meditations are one each month for an entire year. It's a year's process. I want you to know that the seed thoughts for each meditation are being uploaded to the IFGT website for you to be able to access. I think we did the first one last month. So the second one is due. And the alignment that you work on in the setup for that meditation is pivotal. It's a very important alignment. And I've done this meditation myself over a year's period of time. And yes, it is a very strong one. This particular meditation that we'll be doing is slightly different than that. Doesn't have all the components of it. It's much easier to move into and out of. And it's also a good one, as I said, to maybe at the end of the midday, morning, evening, to revitalize and energize our system as need be. So let's do this now. Look for those 12-month meditations, seed thought meditations on IFGT's website. With feet flat on the floor, spine as straight as possible, shoulders relaxed, chin tucked inward. Become physically relaxed and comfortable. In a sitting position. Become emotionally calm and serene. Become mentally poised and alert. Focus your consciousness in the ajna center between the brows. And integrate your threefold persona, body, emotions, and mind, into a single unit within the ajna center. You can do that with your breath. 3 breaths, 1 for each. 1 inhale for the body. Bring it energy up into the ajna center. And then another inhale, bringing the astral body up into the ajna center. And then a third inhalation, bringing the mental body into the ajna center. As the integrated consciousness, which you are now, in the ajna center, between the brows, rather focus the consciousness in the ajna center between the brows and integrate your threefold persona into a single unit. And as the integrated consciousness in the ajna gaze outward, and visualize the etheric network which underlies the body. As the consciousness in the ajna, maintaining the outward alignment with the vision of the underlying etheric network align upward through the top of the head with the spiritual soul. As the consciousness in the ajna, vitalize the etheric network of your integrated persona by sounding the following seed thought audibly. I invoke the universal life energy into the etheric network of my bodies to revitalize and energize my entire persona. Visualize that universal vital life energy flowing into and throughout your entire etheric network, transforming that network and your bodies, the mental, the astral, and the physical etheric, into a radiating source of vital life energy. Leaving that alignment with the source of vital life energy in place. Gradually relax the attention and return to your normal focus. The above technique will reflect in the physical as more energy and a higher tone in general health. And with that, everybody, we will close for this session. There are 3 other meditations that are given as choices in this lesson. And I will put them up on the website for you to utilize. Select which ones appeal to you and utilize on your own, okay? And with that, I thank all of you for your attention. Stay connected, stay strong, stay anchored, because we're entering into some interesting times going forward. And I think, yes, fortunately, we have outlets like this and the Institute for Global Transformation for assistance, camaraderie, greater depth and understanding, and the ability to be with others, okay, of like-mindedness. I'm always available through email. I will reach out to you. If you reach out to me, I will respond. And I hold everybody who has interest in these topics and these lessons, and in whatever form they take, um, in my meditations and my prayers. Thank you so much for your time, and look forward to seeing you next month. Until then, be strong and be of love. And remember that we are one. We are one. Okay? With much love to you. Take good care. And I thank the Institute for Global Transformation again for this opportunity, as always. And Mary Ann Miller, she's doing a fantastic job. Ken Marks and all of the volunteers who stand behind and within the Institute for Global Transformation. Give thanks. Take care. Namaste.